to dear sisters. At the very outset of this year, 2017, I would like to extend to you my sincere greetings for a prosperous new year, filled with God's boundless love and blessings. Dear sisters, we are all aware that 14 November 2017, the Institute will celebrate the 140 years of the first missionary expedition. In keeping with this important event in the history of our Institute, I would like to share with you the mission of a touring sister. Articles 75 and 76 of our Constitutions quotes, "The missionary dimension is an essential element of the identity of the Institute and the expression of its universality." Let us respond to the needs of the local church and the area with new forms of presence according to our possibilities and always in fidelity to the character of our Institute. Revisiting the history of our Institute, we find that our first sisters lived as missionaries of joy and hope, and their hands became industrious and faithful because in their hearts they carried the inheritance left by our founders, a strong missionary impulse. If each one of you will go back to the history of your own provinces or communities, you will find the same missionary impulse lived by our sisters in creative ways, and one of those elements is touring the villages cum family visits that sustained and supported the success and fruitfulness of our FMA presence. Although we may think that living in metropolitan cities, amidst new sciences and technologies, updating communication skills available, digital network and globalization, or even in remotest villages where social and digital networking is accessible, one may say that touring and family visits becomes very less effective or even outdated. In some situations or provinces, it may be partially correct because of many reasons, but it is not justified. I would term touring ministry as a call within a call. It is a great privilege to be called to proclaim Jesus and teach His message in the villages. Those sisters who move from village to village, bearing the good news of Christ, strengthening Christian communities, and seeking to build up new ones, directly share in the prophetic mission of Christ. In the Gospels, Jesus is presented as constantly available to people, often in the midst of crowds, frequently visiting families and engaged in conversation with individuals and groups, ever attentive to the sick, to sinners, to children, to persons in any kind of need. He went to villages and towns, taught in the synagogues, announced the good news of the gospel on the streets. He stays in private homes, enters into the inner life of families, keeps up the dialogue even in the night. For example, the Samaritan woman near the well, Zacchaeus near the sycamore tree, Nathanael at his first encounter, and the apostles in their life situations. In the same way, a touring sister's vocation is meeting people of various status with the sole intention of being a harbinger of Christ's message. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because He had anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He had sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those that are bruised. The great joy of the touring sister is that she is answering to an actual human need, just as a mother finds pleasure in giving nourishment to her child. A missionary sister rejoices when she can attend to the spiritual hunger of fellow human beings. The very response of the beneficiary is an encouragement and a reward. She is a bridge between the institutional church and the scattered Christian communities. Her personal, warm-hearted approach reflects the motherly love and concern that the universal church has for her children. Just as she takes the teachings of the church to the least instructed members, she also brings the problems and difficulties of the feebler communities to church leaders and those engaged in institutional services. Staying in the families, living their conditions, and listening to their personal stories, she becomes mediator of Christ's love and compassion. Her presence is a healing balm to the sick, a consolation to the broken-hearted, a transformation to those lost in human condemnation, home return to the strayed ones, strength for the weak, discernment for the doubtable, and a new life to those died in sin and slavery. Hence, a touring sister is more effective than anyone else in pastoral evangelization because she knows the grassroots of every family. Jesus faced acceptance and rejection with equal composure. He is not allowed to enter into Samaria. He is asked to leave the place where he had done a service. His life is threatened. On the other hand, people flock to him, to touch him, to have a glimpse of him from a distance. A touring sister also experiences so many similarities between the situation in which Jesus lived and in which she is working with. Staying 15 to 20 days in the villages, especially in remote areas, can have many inconveniences, such as traveling from one village to another on foot for hours and hours could drain away strength and energy. Lack of sleep, tiredness, prolonged starvation can even cause sicknesses. But still, she carries on her mission with a smile on the face and strength on her feet. Facing people of various social, cultural backgrounds, multi-religious norms, different families' codes, diverse languages, and different levels of living standards demand great competence and prudence. Yet these hardships reap harvests of fruitfulness and success. I would like to share with you the success story of a real-time missionary, Sister Ritter Tengkan of our province. When a Salesian dies in harness, it is a glory for the congregation, says Don Bosco. This saying brings to mind the memory of our dear Sister Ritter Tengkan, who spent most years of her religious life in the Garo Hills of Meghalaya and finally gave up her life while on her mission. While on their missionary tour on 15 September 2007, she along with Sister Jomita Sangma and another girl were crossing a river on a raft, wherein the raft gave way. The sisters were very conscious to protect the life of the girl, and in that situation, Sister Little succumbed to the river and gave up her spirit. Sister Little was born on 30th December 1969 at Sapai village of Jantia Hills, belonging to Malkandeng parish. She was the third of 8 children. After her initial formation, she made her first profession on 5th August 1995 at Belafonte, Shillong. Since 1999, St. Mary Matsurlo Convent, Garubada, was her home, and she gave her best to the ministry of the word. During these 8 years of her missionary life, Sister Little made herself all things to all people, touring the interior villages and visiting every family, the sick and the poor in particular. She learned the language of the place, coupled with her happy and jovial character, enabled her enter the homes and lives of the people. She was hard-working, very responsible to what was entrusted to her, and made herself available for the mission of the community. It was her great missionary heart that did not hesitate to visit the families of the people, even during days of torrential rain, which ultimately asked the sacrifice of her young life. Dear sisters, I invite each one of us to relive this beautiful mission, which is the heart of our charism, wherever possible, and not to underestimate its effectiveness, particularly during this commemoration of the 140th First Missionary Expedition. I would like to conclude with the mandate of Pope Francis to all of us in the message addressed to the Capitulars in Rome on 8 November 2014. Be missionaries of hope and joy. For us, Mary is a model who daily inspires us in all situations, in the various calls that God trustfully offers us. Let us entrust to her our desire to regenerate the missionary impulse of our founders and first sisters in our own time, as we continue the journey of evangelization to be credible word of hope with our life of witness. I wish you a very happy feast of Saint Francis de Sales, whose feast we commemorate today. May he intercede for us that we may live loving kindness as envisaged by our Father and Founder, Saint John Bosco.